Alright, this is Doom from Dungeons and Doom Biscuits, one half of the creative team behind DungeonSwag.com. And I promised that we would paint this, and I did a half butt prime on it using some semi-gloss black, the first can I grabbed. Like I said, it doesn't really matter what you use. And we're gonna paint this now. Now, the secret to painting is not being good. It's using graduation. So the first color we're going to use is this is Apple Barrel from Walmart probably. Pewter gray, and then we're going to do sky blue. So we just need the tiniest bit of water to make sure it goes in all the cracks. And then keep junk brushes like this. These junk brushes are your friend. From terrain, I don't really use good terrain brushes on terrain ever. I always use garbage. So what we want to do is we want to use this watered down and we want to get it all in the cracks and everything and completely cover this the best we can. This will be our first coat, and then this will dry quick because it's cardboard and it'll soak in some, and we didn't oversaturate it with our spray. If you oversaturate with your spray to where all of everything is glossy, it will not absorb quickly. But what we're going to do is we're going to base coat this, and then we're going to jump over and let it dry in front of my fan for a few minutes while I work on this Jabba the Hutt I'm painting. Well, in my game, his name's not going to be Jabba, but it is a Jabba the Hutt miniature I downloaded from Thingiverse for dirt cheap, or free actually, I think. Thingiverse is all free if I'm not mistaken. So you can get prints for miniatures, STL files, for free on Thingiverse, and sometimes for free on myminifactory.com, and there's probably other sites that I just am too lazy to look for. Maybe I'll do a video about finding miniatures and how to set up your STLs for printing. They probably have a million videos of that, you know. I'm sure that I'm way late in the game to try to teach anybody that stuff. But if anybody's interested, let me know in the comments, and we can talk about that stuff a little bit someday in the future here. But on my mini factory, you can actually find our artist Sven that we use for DungeonSwag.com. His name is Sven, and his mini business is called Daybreak Miniatures. And of all the people we've used, his boys are a little thick. His orcs are a little thick. His cow people, they're kind of like I don't know, Minotaur people that just live free in the plains. So we're completely covered. I'm going to set this down. We're going to work on my hut. So when you're painting, I don't know if you guys have heard of a Zenithal Prime. This is kind of like a half-butt Zenithal Prime because I'm going to be using two main colors on this dude. I'm going to be using a tannish and then maybe a bluish or a greenish. So if you look at him up close, it's just a standard Jabba. I printed this miniature hollow, which was I don't do very often on something this small, but I did because I was in a hurry and it saves a lot of resin. I only had half a bottle. But I had some problems on the back because I did not realize that the hole that was in him leaked out some resin that didn't drain out when I cleaned him, and he was laying like this, and it kind of all stuck to his back. And I brought him in here, and the natural sunlight cleared it or dried it and made this crackled area. But the back of the miniature, I'm using him one time for one encounter, is not super important. So what we want to do is when you're using speed paints or anything like that, you don't want to just pour it on your card stock. You want to get a piece of tape or something that it won't absorb through. So this is just some red masking tape my wife had from painting or something. And then you want to pick your color. So I'm going to use this Absolution Green. This is an Army Painter speed paint. And none of the products I show you guys no one's paying me to like advertise this stuff, okay? Like, I'm just showing you the stuff that I use. Army Painter's paints are amazing. Their speed paints are amazing. I have some Games Workshop stuff. I don't like the pots that they come with. I spill them. I'm clumsy. These are nice because I can just spray out kind of what I need and then go from there. As I'm looking over, our building's almost dry, so we're going to jump back to that as soon as I'm done doing this coat of green, I think. I'll have to go walk over and check it. But so what I'm doing is, I'm going to do this coat of green, and if you're not familiar with how speed paints work, they kind of settle in the deep spots and the cracks and give it a little detail, so they're darker where they settle. It's very similar to the dyeing process used for anodizing metal, actually. But anyways, we're just going to coat this up quickly, get it looking where the colors are supposed to be. It's a miniature we're using one time, like I said, so we're not going for perfection. I just want to be able to toss it on the table and say, there's your hut, because it's almost hard to have a space-themed game without a hut involved. I did put a Rancor out there on Saturday night when we played, and I printed the Rancor myself, and it was a decent print, and I spent a little more time painting that because I decided I was going to keep that. But this, I'll hand this off or I'll toss it, really. It's just, it costs almost nothing to, when you can buy your own resin and print things on your own time and do things your way. It's a relatively inexpensive, it's not like it used to be when I used to have to handcraft miniature. The first hut I owned, I actually modeled out of clay about 20 years ago, and then it finally, after moving a couple times and stuff, it did break. But it held up the test of time. I compared to most minis, I lose pretty quick. And before I started really painting, for years I didn't paint miniatures. I bought pre-painteds, and I bought stuff at garage sales and made miniatures, or I bought stuff at like flea markets. So what I'm just doing around the edges here is trying to break up the perfect line and make it jagged, so it looks like there's going to be a blend when I do the undercoat of the lighter. A lot of people say to do the lighter first. Well, that just depends on how good you are with a brush, how big of a hurry you are, and how much you care. You can do it your way. Don't let people tell you how to paint. There's some dude, he's pretty good. He does a lot of this like slap chop painting, which is like a little better than what I'm doing, which is just no chop, I guess. It's just garbage painting. But he does a pretty good job on these minis, and he has amazing brush control, and he's like, oh, I hate painting, but then he just paints so well. I actually, depending on what I'm working on, do enjoy painting. Don't want to paint this hut, but alright. So in your rinse water, this is a recommendation. I always, sorry, I need a second here. I always clean my good brushes. It's just I always have a little teeny dab of dish soap in my rinse water. I just keep a little thing of it next to me here. And it helps when you're doing like stuff like this, when you just want to keep your brush clean, but you're not worried about it being real clean. Alright, so we got our building. It's looking pretty dry, like I said. A little bit of wet spots that won't kill us. So now what we want to do is we're going to get this pewter gray. Just put a little dab here. We can get to it. Makeup brush. This one is pink purple vortex. I don't know. Dollar Tree. Boom. We're not really dry brushing just yet, but we don't want to overkill ourselves on one color until we get to doing details. So what we want to do is kind of show that there's some different layers here, but we want to do a little bit thick so that it kind of brings the color of this building to being this color of gray. Okay. So a lot of people say, oh, blah, blah, blah. Well, I'm not an expert painter. I just want this to be okay on my tabletop so that my players enjoy seeing another building down in a more intricate fight scene with different layers and heights. Somebody can rocket pack to this, or they can do that, and it just gives them some options. If you want to hear more about the Tomorrow Comes Doom in Space game we're playing, say something in the comments, and I will try to show you guys what's going on with that. It's we're play testing the space version of it right now. The only version that we've actually fleshed it. Well, I say we. The only version I've fleshed out completely really is the modern version. So the space version, because there's copyrights on things and stuff, I had to really play around and try to get some different ideas going. And so I think what I've come up with is decent. When we are playing the game itself, we do say things like the Force and Jedi and stuff, but as far as the source book goes, I've excluded, for the most part, anything I think that could be considered copyright infringement stuff, because nobody wants to get sued, especially poor people. Blow dryer. From my experience, if you can get a blow dryer from like your grandma or somebody that doesn't use it anymore, one of these older, like really old ones, they get super hot. And the newer ones, they burn up quick and don't seem to get super hot. So here we go. We got a base coat of dark gray, and we have a light gray, kind of, not really a dry brush, but just kind of half butt brush. And now what we're going to do is we're going to take this sky blue. I don't know why I picked sky blue. I just don't always like using nothing but gray. Some of my buildings I've actually done pretty colorful for no reason whatsoever. So we're going to take this sky blue. We're going to get our makeup brush. This is the one I use for everything. It's so bling. Look at that. I think it's like a plastic clear tube full of sparkles. I love it. So good. Not a big sparkle guy, but this brush is sick. And I'll show you why. So just like when we are going more for like that, take as much off the brush as we can. And then we're going to come back here and we're going to pick out our, I'm just barely touching it, man. And or I shouldn't say man, because there could be young ladies, young gentlemen, everybody, whatever in between watching. But just kind of trying to pick up as much of the little bit of pop outs there is to make it look like the building is not flat. And then I'm just going to dab the top around, grab a lot of this up here. Okay, so this is not terrible, not great. But when you throw this on the table with a bunch of other buildings, people aren't going to pick that stuff out. So let's deal with our silver. Like I said, cleaning up while you're working is amazing. Coming down to your crafting area and having to fight a giant mess every time you come in is not ideal. And I know I promised you guys we were going to use a drinking straw, and there's not one on here. I got something for that. Let's just calm down. So we need to cover all our little metal parts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab some paint real quick. Let me see if I have a metallic from like cheap metallic. Here we go. No, that's black metallic. All right, looks like this is folk art brushed metal, brushed dark gray. We aren't even going to need those. I was going to use some army painter stuff, but this is terrain, not a miniature. So I'm just going to grab my little rivets. Some people make these buildings look like super like professional, and they have rust coming under their rivets and stuff. And I guess if I was really motivated by what I was doing, we would do that too. But again, it's a quick building. I don't know if I'm showing you guys. I didn't even look to see if I'm on camera doing this stuff. I repositioned my camera in between shoots while I was doing some miniature stuff. Well, while I was base coating that Jabba the Hutt and painting his eyes black. Which I don't even know what color Hutt eyes are. I probably should have looked that up, but his are black. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this little control panel where these 2 buttons are and paint that silver. And I'm going to come back and do those buttons. And then I'm going to do this door frame. Need a bigger brush. Taking too long. That's another thing. Like, it's almost a blessing when you ruin a brush. Because I would rather throw a brush away after I use it for doing terrain, depending on what medium I'm using, than have to scrub it out. Not always, but sometimes. Like this brush, this is like a workhorse brush. I use this for everything. All right, so I'm going to make our door a different color real quick using this same big brush. And I think what color we're going to go with is a ward blue. And the only reason I'm doing this is because just having a door different color will make this building a little more dressed out. It does not have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be evenly coated. You don't want to do something like this first before you do like your dry brush and stuff, because the darker coats that you put underneath, whether it's like a dark red or a dark green or a gray or whatever it may be, they generally do not allow you to paint something with one coat this vibrant. They don't like it and they stop you. All right, there you go. I need to do some buttons. And then I need to clear coat it. Now, there are a ton of different clear coats you can use. Everybody has different things. Some people like to do manual clear coats. Red button. And a green button. Some people like to do manual coats. Some people like to spray it. Some people like to use like polys. I'm just, whatever I have is kind of what I do. I usually have like some kind of spray clear coat on hand. Now when you're doing miniatures, this is a different conversation. But there's our thing. We're going to dry the door real quick. Old $3 at the Goodwill or somewhere probably. Vidal Sassoon. I've dropped it. I have it taped together. This is very old. I had one from my grandmother for a long time, and then I had one from like a modern one I bought. And then my wife had this one somehow. Or maybe she bought it for me, I don't even know. Alright, so our building is looking decent. Now what we're going to do is we're going to clear coat it. I can't show you that because I can't carry the camera and do that, but I'll be right back. Alright, so we're back, and this I use Watco Crystal Clear matte sealant for this one. It's just because it's what was sitting over there from some other project I was working on. But this will dry. That'll be it. So this took us, I don't know, I'm guessing an hour total And we could have done it faster if I wasn't recording, and but I owe you something still. I forgot. I almost forgot. Ugh. I said we were going to use a drinking straw. So this is a normal drinking straw painted silver. We're going to come over here. We're just going to add a little on the corner, on the side here. We're going to add a drinking straw. Now it's painted silver already. And we're going to cut it off. Now you're going to say, oh, Chris, the top of it's white when you look down in it. You know what? It is. It'll be all right. So there you go. There's a fast building. It cost absolutely $0 to make besides having the paint and stuff on hand already. It looks decent from a distance. When you throw it on the table with other stuff, it's going to look fine. That's all you need. And you can populate your table with round buildings, square buildings. I make them out of boxes. I just made one out of a Swiss roll cake box that my kids pellet polished off. And you can do all this. So here we are, 55 minutes in or whatever, 2 videos, and anyone can do this. You need no talent whatsoever. If you don't have these little beads, these little bead art things I used, you can easily use, little cuts of cardboard and squares, like I was telling you about that one fellow that makes the robots, and you could use anything you can find, really. So thank everybody very much for watching. I hope this project helped you get somewhere along your journey. That's all I got. Have a good evening.